Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking the biggest financial traps people fall into during their 20s and early 30s. We're talking about those hidden behaviors, the psychological blind spots, and the structural errors that can totally derail your financial future. And of course, we're going to cover exactly how to avoid them.
So it's a super fascinating question, right? Why on earth do smart, highly capable people do absolutely crazy things with their money? Well, the truth is we all make money decisions based on our own deeply personal experiences. But relying just on that limited worldview, that's exactly why so many of us make critical, completely avoidable mistakes early in our careers.
To get you on a clear roadmap from trap to triumph, we're counting down 5 massive mistakes today. We've got the ego and comparison trap, lacking a financial blueprint, ignoring the macroeconomy, the end of history illusion, and missing that vital compounding window. Let's jump right in.
Number 1. The ego and comparison trap. We really need to look at the psychological drivers behind so much bad spending.
Because there's this striking generational bias at play. Think about it. If you were born in 1970, the stock market increased almost tenfold during your teens and 20s. You probably look at the market as this unstoppable wealth-building machine. But if you were born in 1950, the market literally went nowhere during those exact same formative years. These two groups, separated purely by their birth year, view stock market risk in completely different ways. Your personal experience makes up barely a tiny fraction of what's happened in the world, yet it accounts for about 80% of how you think the world works.
And honestly, that limited worldview feeds right into social comparison, which is a massive, massive trap in your 20s. Social comparison makes even incredibly wealthy people feel completely broke. Just take a rookie baseball player making $500,000 a year. By any normal standard, he is incredibly rich. But if he plays on the exact same team as Mike Trout, who's bringing in $36 million a year, that rookie suddenly feels broke. And Mike Trout, he might be comparing himself to a top hedge fund manager making $340 million. There is always someone making exponentially more. If you can't stop moving that financial goalpost, your ego is just going to constantly push you to spend money you really shouldn't, all just to keep up appearances.
So the absolutely crucial thing here is distinguishing between two entirely different skills, getting money and keeping money. Getting money requires taking risks, being super optimistic, and putting yourself out there. But keeping money? That requires the exact opposite. It takes humility, frugality, and a healthy dose of fear that everything you've made could just vanish. In your 20s, it's so easy to get totally addicted to the thrill of the getting side while completely ignoring the quiet humility required for the keeping side.
Which brings us to mistake number 2, lacking a financial blueprint. Because you simply can't keep your money if you have no idea where it's going day to day.
A really highly effective strategy for this is the 50-30-20 rule. It cleanly chunks your income into 3 distinct buckets. 50% goes to your absolute necessities. Think rent, utilities, food, getting to work. 30% is for your wishes, the fun stuff like entertainment and dining out. And then a non-negotiable 20% is locked in for savings, investments, and debt repayment. By running this kind of detailed budget, you monitor your cash flow, drastically reduce your money stress, and build long-term stability without feeling like you're depriving yourself of a life.
But here's a really important core concept to remember. When building that budget, aiming to be mostly reasonable actually works way better than trying to be coldly rational. Sure, there are investment strategies that are mathematically perfect on a spreadsheet, like heavily leveraging your retirement accounts when you're young, but spreadsheets don't have human emotions. If the market drops 50% and wipes you out, a rational spreadsheet says, just keep going. But a reasonable human, they're going to panic, sell everything, and swear off investing for life. The best financial blueprint in your 20s isn't the one with the highest theoretical return. It's the one that lets you sleep soundly at night so you actually stick with it for decades.
Mistake number 3 is ignoring the macroeconomy. We have to zoom out from your personal bank account and look at the invisible forces that are actively eating away at your purchasing power. Just look at how inflation impacted prices during your formative years, again, depending entirely on when you were born. If you grew up in the 1960s, you literally watched prices shoot up more than 3-fold. You distinctly remember your paycheck stretching noticeably less far every year. But if you were born in 1990, inflation has historically been so low for most of your life that you might completely ignore it in your planning. And ignoring inflation is a massive mistake because it drastically changes how far your money actually goes over time.
So to protect yourself against this invisible tax, you really need to understand the Federal Reserve. Congress gave the Fed what's called a dual mandate. Basically, their job is to promote maximum employment, so the highest level of jobs the economy can sustain, while also maintaining stable prices for the everyday goods and services we all buy. They are the ones actually pulling the levers that directly control the inflation we were just talking about.
And how do they do that? By shifting monetary policy. When the economy is sluggish, the Fed does what's called easing, by lowering short-term interest rates. This makes borrowing cheaper and gets people spending. But if inflation is running way too hot, they start tightening by raising those rates. And here's how this hits your daily life. When the Fed tightens, the interest rates on your credit cards, your car loans, and your future mortgages all go up. Understanding this macro environment stops you from being totally blindsided by massive borrowing costs right when you're trying to establish your life.
All right, moving on to number 4, the end of history illusion. This is a cognitive blind spot, and it's the false but incredibly common belief that our goals and desires won't change as we get older.
Have you ever just assumed that whoever you are right now is exactly who you're going to be at 40 or 60? That is the illusion right there. And it makes extreme financial planning incredibly dangerous. If you commit to extreme austerity, like living on basically nothing to save every single penny, or, on the flip side, extreme luxury, where you're grinding out 80 hours a week to fund a lavish lifestyle, you are totally setting yourself up for future regret. People adapt. The thrill of those extremes always wears off. Instead, aiming for a balance, moderate savings, a moderate commute, a healthy work-life balance, that dramatically increases your odds of actually sticking with a plan over time. Endurance is the real name of the game here.
Finally, we arrive at mistake number 5, missing the compounding window. Numerically speaking, this is easily the most costly mistake you can make in your 20s.
Time is hands down the most powerful force in investing. It literally makes little things grow massive and makes big mistakes fade away. To make sure you win here, Fidelity outlines a super specific action plan for younger generations. Step 1, start early. Just put time on your side. Step 2, max out your tax-advantaged savings, things like your 401k, health savings accounts, and IRAs. And Step 3, make sure you have an age-appropriate allocation to stocks to capture that long-term growth. Because missing out on those first 10 years of compounding in your 20s, it means you'll have to work twice as hard in your 40s just to catch up.
Now, if you're sitting there feeling a bit overwhelmed by all of this, just take a breath. Check out this massive number, $27 trillion. That was the total amount sitting in U.S. retirement accounts at the end of 2018. Why does that matter to you? Because the modern financial system, especially things like retirement accounts and index funds, is basically brand new in the grand scope of human history. These systems are practically infants. So it is perfectly normal that we're all still figuring out how to play this game. Don't beat yourself up over past mistakes, just focus on correcting them moving forward.
And as you do correct those mistakes, keep this reality check in mind. We constantly hear pop stars and athletes bragging about spending millions. The singer Rihanna actually sued her financial advisor after nearly going bankrupt from overspending, and her advisor basically had to tell her in court, when you spend money on things, you end up with the things, not the money. It sounds obvious, but if your goal is to spend $1 million on luxury items just to show off, you are actively achieving the literal opposite of being a millionaire.
So as you build your financial life, anchor yourself to this one powerful concept. Wealth is what you don't see. True wealth is the cars you didn't buy, the first-class upgrades you declined, the jewelry you left at the store. It's created by suppressing what you could buy today so you can gain more options and more freedom for your future. At the end of the day, saving money is really just the gap between your ego and your income. If you can dial back your ego and stop caring so much about what other people think, your ability to save is going to skyrocket. So, I'm going to leave you with a final, slightly provocative thought to chew on after today's explainer. Take a hard look at your recent spending. Are you actually aligning your money with your long-term goals for freedom and peace of mind? Or are you just funding your ego to impress people who are playing a completely different game? Think about it. See you next time.